Hi everyone, welcome to the day 11 of our algebra review camp. So this is our final week for this review camp, and we'll be talking about more of advanced topics in pre-algebra. Okay, so today we'll be talking about the square roots. So we'll start from like what is the meaning of the square roots, and also why do we need this? Okay, so we know that the square roots is just like an operation. So if we have a b squared equals to a, then we say that the b is the square root of a, like one of the square roots. Okay, so why do we need this kind of thinking? So imagine you have a square, right? So in the geometry meaning, right? So we have a square with a 40 equal signs. And then I told you that the area of this square equals to 4. So the area of this square equals to 4. So what is the length of the side of this square? So obviously we can just assume that, okay, the length equals to a, so that we have a squared equals to 4. And of course, we can solve this equation, right? So we know that the a should be equal to 2, right? And we also know that if you just want to solve this equation, then a can also be -2, right? Because -2 will also satisfy this equation. But since we are talking about the square, so we know that we cannot have a negative value for the side. Now, what if I tell you that the square is now having a area equals to 2? So we have a smaller square like this, okay? And the area is now equal to 2. So we still want to find out what is the length of the side of this square. So as usual, we can assume that the length of the side equals to b now. And then the b squared will equals to 2, okay? But now there's the question. So what is the value of this b, right? So obviously we cannot find an integer such that the b squared equals to 2, right? Because 1 squared equals to 1 and then 2 squared equals to 4. So there's no integer such that the b squared equals to 2. Now, what about a fraction, right? So we know that the b has to be in between 1 and 2, right? So what if b is just a fraction? So we can also do that. So suppose the b here is equal to a xy, okay? So we just assume that the b equals to a fraction. And then we say that the x and y are both integers because that is what we have for the fraction. And also we cannot do any simplification with these fractions, which means that the x and y will be co-prime, okay? So, and if x and y will be co-prime, that means they cannot be even numbers, because if they are even numbers, then we can further simplify this fraction. So we have x and y are odd, okay? Or they are just one odd or one even. So we say that they are not both even, okay? So they are not both even. Okay, so now with this assumption, let's take a look. So we know that the b equals to x over y, and we also know that the x over y to the power of 2 equals to 2, right? Because that is what we have for the b squared. And then we have x squared over y squared equals to 2. Of course, we just need to apply the power of a quotient, which we learned in last week, okay? So this gives us the x squared equal to 2 times y squared, okay? So once we get to this step, what do we know about the x? Do you think the x is an even number or an odd number? So obviously the x squared will be an even number, right? Because we have the 2 times whatever number it is. And then because x squared is an even number, so of course x will also be an even number. Because imagine if x is an odd number, then x squared will also be an odd number. Okay, so we know that. X is even. Okay, so that is what we know from this step. And then since x is an even number, why don't we use a 2k to represent the x? So k will be another integer, and since x is an even number, so we can use the 2k to represent the x. Okay, and then we also have a 2 times y to the power of 2, so we keep the right hand side. And now simplify that, we have 4k squared equals to 2 times y squared. And then we can divide both sides by a 2. So we have 2k squared equals to y, okay? And now, once we get to this step, what do we know about the y? Yeah, so it means the y squared. So because y squared is also an even number, that means the y is an even number, okay? So the y will be an even number. Y is even. But remember, we make an assumption that x and y are not both even numbers, right? So at least one of them should be an odd number. but we just proved that the x and y are both even numbers in order to satisfy this relationship. So we know that the b here would not be a normal fraction that we know, right? So for a normal fraction, we know we can simplify this fraction until that they are both like co-prime numbers, right? So here, the b would not be a fraction, okay? So b would not be a rational number in this case. So we know b is special, and we have no way to represent this number, like whatever it is. So we come up with this operation, or we come up with this symbol, that is the radical, okay? So we know that if we have b squared equals to 2, we can say that the b equals to the square root of 2, okay? So we don't have to worry about like how to solve the b. We can just use the radical symbol, and then we just write a 2 inside this radical, okay? And also we know that the b can also be the negative version of the square root of 2, right? Because we know that for any positive numbers, we have 2 square roots, one positive and then one negative, okay? So this is just a basic idea on how we come up with the radicals, okay? So now let's take a look at the practice. So for the first one, what is the square root of 25? And since 25 is a perfect square, we can just write down the square roots. And be careful, if we are talking about the square roots, we must have two possible square roots. So one of them will be positive, and the other one should be negative, okay? So we can either have 1 or -5. So both of them are the square roots of 25, okay? Now, what about root 49? So if we just have a radical symbol, so we need to know that this one would not be like the 2 square roots, okay? So it's only the positive square roots, because we see that if b squared equals to 2, then we have b equals to root 2 or b equals to negative root 2. So if we just have a radical and 49, that means we are talking about the positive square roots. So this one would only equal to 7, okay? So here we only have the positive ones for the root 49, okay? So that's it for all the practice today. And now let's try to give all these questions a try and see if we can figure out the questions, okay? So I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.